All right, today we're jumping into one of the Bible's wildest and most visionary books, the book of Zechariah. Seriously, this thing is a trip. It's packed with surreal night visions, mind-bending prophecies, and ultimately a message of just radical hope for people who had basically given up.
The whole book really kicks off with this question, a question that, let's be honest, feels super relevant. When everything around you is in ruins, when you feel like you failed, where do you even begin to pick up the pieces? So let's set the scene. It's 520 BCE. The people of Judah are back from a long, painful exile in Babylon. They come home to Jerusalem, their capital, only to find it's a wreck. The great temple, a pile of rocks. And that initial burst of energy to rebuild has totally fizzled out. Now it's just apathy, opposition from their neighbors, and this crushing feeling that it's all hopeless. And it's right into that heavy, discouraged atmosphere that a prophet named Zechariah shows up. And he doesn't start with a 5-point plan or a political speech. He starts with a really simple, direct invitation.
This is the deal on the table. The people feel like God has abandoned them, but the message here is, hey, this distance you feel, it's a two-way street. God is basically saying, just turn back toward me. Take that first step, and I promise, I will be right there to meet you. It's a call to shake off the apathy and just re-engage.
But, okay, how do you actually convince a bunch of demoralized people that things can change? Well, Zechariah's answer comes in a series of 8 really strange symbolic visions that he gets all in one night. And these aren't just random dreams. They are laser-focused on tackling the people's deepest fears.
And what's so great, and honestly so relatable, is that Zechariah is just as confused by all this as we would be. He's got an angel guiding him through it, and his first question is basically, what am I looking at? It's perfect, because it lets us figure out the meaning right there with him. And it turns out these first few visions hit their main anxieties head-on: their enemies, their own guilt, and their fear of being small and insignificant.
So, vision number 1 goes right after that fear of being surrounded by enemies. Zechariah sees 4 horns and then 4 craftsmen who show up to deal with him. You have to understand, in the ancient world, horns were the symbol of brutal military power. For the people of Judah, these 4 horns were a picture of the empires, Babylon, Assyria, that had completely shattered their nation and scattered them all over the place. It's basically a vision of their national trauma.
And then comes the response. 4 craftsmen, think of them as divine blacksmiths, show up with one job: to tear those horns down. The message couldn't be clearer. The very powers that crushed you are themselves going to be taken apart. God's justice is coming for them.
Okay, so the next vision pivots. It turns from the external enemy to the internal one: shame, guilt, a feeling of being unworthy. And this is all personified in their leader, Joshua the high priest, who's standing in this heavenly courtroom scene looking like a total mess. So at first, Joshua's wearing these disgusting, filthy clothes, a symbol of the nation's sin and failure. And to make it worse, he's being accused by a figure called the Satan, which literally means the accuser. But then God steps in. The dirty clothes are taken away, he's given clean, beautiful robes, and he's declared innocent. It's this beautiful picture of total forgiveness and a fresh start for the entire nation. Now for the third vision, which tackles a really practical fear. The thought that, okay, even if we rebuild, we're just going to be this tiny, weak little city waiting for the next empire to stomp on us. The vision shows a man with a measuring tape, getting ready to mark out the new city's walls. But an angel stops him, and the command is just shocking. The new Jerusalem will have no walls. Why? Because it's going to be so overflowing with people that walls couldn't even contain it. In its defense, forget stone and mortar. God himself will be a wall of fire around it. It's a promise of limitless growth and absolute security. So you've got all these incredible promises: defeating empires, cleansing a nation, building this huge protected city. But how? How is this tiny, worn-out community supposed to pull any of this off? This question leads to the single most famous declaration in the whole book. This is the answer to all their despair. The whole rebuilding project isn't going to succeed because of their army or their money or their political smarts. It's going to happen because of God's Spirit empowering them. That giant mountain of an obstacle in front of them, it's going to become a flat plain. As the book moves forward, the camera kind of pulls back. The focus starts to shift from the immediate job of rebuilding the temple to a much bigger, future-oriented hope. Zechariah starts to paint a picture of a new kind of leader for this new Jerusalem. So the visions gave them hope for their present situation. But now Zechariah looks way down the road. He starts prophesying about a king who is going to completely flip the script on what power and royalty even mean.
This is one of the most famous prophecies in the entire Old Testament. Instead of a conquering hero on a war horse, their king shows up in total humility, riding a donkey, an animal of peace. This is a king who brings salvation, not subjugation. It's just a radical rethinking of what true leadership looks like.
From there, the book's perspective explodes to a cosmic scale. The final chapters get into this chaotic, world-changing event called the Day of the Lord. It's a time of final judgment and divine intervention that will basically remake everything.
And look, these are some intense pages. You've got all the nations of the world gathering for one last big battle against Jerusalem. It looks like it's all over. But just when things are at their worst, God himself shows up, fights for the city, and starts this process that will renew the entire universe.
This slide just shows you the incredible reversal. The book starts with this broken little group in a pile of rubble. It ends with a renewed world. Jerusalem becomes the holy mountain, the place where all nations come to worship God. Instead of people being scattered, they're gathered. And out of the city flows this river of living water, bringing life to everything.
But the book doesn't end on that grand, abstract vision. It closes with one of the most specific, strange, and frankly beautiful images in the whole Bible. It's all about what holiness is going to look like in this new world.
Now you have to catch how radical this is. The phrase, holiness to the Lord, was written on one thing and one thing only, the turban of the high priest, who went into the most sacred part of the temple once a year. It was the peak of sacredness. Zechariah says, in the new creation, that same level of holiness will be engraved on the bells of a horse, a common, everyday working animal. The sacred and the ordinary completely merge.
And that's the final thought Zechariah leaves us chewing on. The ultimate hope isn't just a new building or a new political system. It's about a world where God's own holy presence fills every nook and cranny of life, turning even the most mundane things into something sacred. It's a pretty incredible vision, especially for a story that started in a city of ruins.